On ESPN Plus, I feel like I see this every day at the moment. There is so much to get through throughout today's show. We'll be going to Orlando, to Stefano Vasaro, who is our man in the bubble, to give us all the latest details on those positive tests for those FC Dallas players. Also, later on in the programme, Ali Moreno and Gab Marcotti with me to react to Antoine Griezmann's family taking to social media to criticise Quique Setien. We start, though, in the Premier League. And it was pretty much the perfect day if you're a Manchester United or a Wolves fan, because both Leicester City and Chelsea lost. Chelsea losing by 3-2 against West Ham. Let's start, shall we, by looking at that game. Stevie Nicol, Shaka, Hislop, Frank Leboeuf. I can tell you that Frank used some very fruity language before we came on air to describe Chelsea's performance. Frank, could you maybe use that, say it again, but not quite so anti-Disney?
Yes, I will, for sure. Well, that was a complete stupid Chelsea, if I may say that. Didn't give the best, was in possession of the ball, dominating the game, but making so many errors. And I want to put my hat off to Mr. Michael Antonio, who completely dominated two defenders, Christensen and especially Rudiger. Should have a penalty, but kept on working hard and scored a second goal. I mean, with all due respect to West Ham, because West Ham did what...
If you think you have to go away from home and score 3 goals to get a point, then clearly the problem is defensively. And that's not something new. I know I've been talking about it. As good as they are going forward, and they could have scored 3 or 4 goals today. And if you're scoring 3 or 4 goals away from home, you're not doing too badly. But at the back, you know, Michail Antonio, as big a heart and as big a physical presence as he is, he doesn't have the touch to go along with those other things that he has. And what you do against a guy like him is you use your football brain. And we saw today that Rudiger and Christensen do not have a football brain. They did everything to make it easy for him. They gave him space so that he could pick the ball up short. They didn't get tight enough when they had to for balls over the top. And then they got too tight in the times when they shouldn't be. You know, a big physical guy like him, he wants you to be really tight so he knows where you are. You've got to use your brains. And I have to say, as good as Frank has been so far, him and Jody Morris, as coaches with going forward, I think you saw a weakness in them today, because this is really easily sorted. All you have to do is one of two things. You either make sure that Kante sits in front of Antonio and screens him, and if he's not there, then one of the centre-backs screens him and the other one goes in behind. It's called one in front, one behind. That means the only ball that's beating you is a big long ball away over the back, and you should be able to deal with that. I think that's down to the coaches, because they never saw it and they never changed it.
Stevie, if it's that obvious to you, why isn't it obvious to them?
Well, because teams don't do that. You know, I hear people talking all the time about, oh, the game's moved on. Well, I tell you what, the game may have moved on in certain areas, but it's also gone backwards in others. And that's one of them. You know, teams don't know how to defend properly anymore. You know, listen, I joined the European champions, and it was the first thing I learned. Defending when you're going forward is just as important. When you have the ball, it's important that you defend properly. And that was the first thing I learned. The two centre-backs, either one in front, one behind, or they pull the full-back, or they pull somebody in front to stop a ball just getting knocked out. And then all of a sudden, teams are getting at you.
Shaka, when Pulisic went down and they won the penalty and Chelsea scored, I don't think there are many Hammers fans who thought, you know what, from what we've seen over recent weeks, they're going to rally, they're going to come back, they're going to win this by 3-2. But fair play to your old side.
Yeah, I thought they did very well, especially after having what should have been the opening goal disallowed as it was. And then Pulisic, who was easily Chelsea's best player, running at not Igbona, Diop as he did, and drew the foul. That opened up a mighty old gap for Rudiger and Christensen to defend against Michail Antonio, who I thought was incredible. Held the ball up well, waited for runners, and was just too much of a handful for Rudiger, as good a player as he is. And West Ham took their chances when they came. And Yarmolenko came in, and again, you see that gap in between their two centre-backs and their midfield as they press, looking for winners, and it just left them exposed. West Ham, I thought, got the just rewards, and not a day to criticise anybody in Claret and Blue.
Frank, do you agree with Stevie? Was Frank Lampard somewhat exposed today tactically?
I agree with Stevie on that. What I agree with Stevie is that he thinks that because you have 3 or 4 chances to score away from home, you did pretty well. I mean, and after he makes a big lies about the fact that Chelsea didn't defend well, where I think away from home, that's the first things that you have to do, defend well. Can you imagine that you are at the 90th minute and you concede a goal in counter-attack when you play away from home? Even if you think that you can win, you have to make sure that you're enough defensively. And I think about Marcos Alonso, when the action is on the right side, why is he doing, where is he going, why is not going back to defend and come back too late? I don't understand why those players don't think about defending when they are defenders. And that's why I'm upset. I totally agree with Stevie the way they defended Christensen and Rudiger on Antonio. That was absolutely insane. I mean, I always talk to Steve Clark or Marcel Desailly or Michael Dewberry. Okay, when you have a strong guy like that, you go in front, I go at the back, I cover you, we squeeze him to make sure that he doesn't control the ball because it's going to be too easy for him to do so. I don't understand why Frank Lampard didn't adjust that, because that was ridiculous the way they defended. On the third goal, I mean, that's crazy because Rudiger, I don't know what he's doing. He's like 20 yards away from his partner and let Yarmolenko going anywhere and score a goal. So, yeah, I'm upset because I think it's not the way I was taught to defend away from home.
Tough after 3.5 minutes VAR took to look at it and decide that in fact there was an offside within it. Was it the right decision? Quite a lot of debate on Twitter about this.
Well, listener, I'm not sure if I'm going to clear any of this up, especially given how biased I am about it. I think you play the ball in an offside position, and then because you fall over in doing so, you then judge it to be offside. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's not. I think, Shaka, I'm sorry, it's not the problem of being offside or not. I think it's the problem of not leaving a free space to Azpilicueta or Kepa. That's why the ref denied the goal. Because of course it's offside.
Why was given, Frank? That's what I'm saying is he goes to play the ball. When he first attempts to play the ball, he's in an onside position and falls over. He has a swing at it and falls over. At that point, he doesn't make another attempt to play the ball. He doesn't make an attempt to block Azpilicueta or Kepa.
So you think it's the right decision,
The ball
Stevie?
hits him.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it was the right decision. Listen, I'm not quite sure what they've done, but I'm telling you, if you don't agree with that, then he was offside anyway, because when the ball hit him, when he was on the ground, and it went away from goal to Kuszczek, that made him offside. So you can take your pick, whichever one you want.
Last point on this.
I mean, for me,
Go on,
sorry, Dan. I don't agree with that because I think he's not in a position of offside because he doesn't touch the ball. The second one, he doesn't touch the ball.
He does. I've watched it 10 times, Frankie.
Azpilicueta cannot attack Souček, and it's why I think it's disallowed. But it couldn't be in a way that he's offside because when Souček kicks the ball, Antonio doesn't touch the ball anymore, so he's not offside.
But he's interfering with play. That was what was judged by the referees. Frank, last point on Chelsea. What do you do with Willian? Do you give him a new contract?
Well, the thing is, I was thinking about that, but I think they really. It's not as good as Pulisic right now because Pulisic is really fantastic right now. But he's important in the squad. He gives a change of rhythm. He gives a pace. He gives technique as well and involvement in the game. So I would have said like before the pandemic. Now it's time for Willian to go. But since the restart, I have to say that it's a question mark because he's doing great and maybe he deserves an offer from Chelsea. But it's up to them.
Meanwhile, as I mentioned at the top, a bad day for Leicester as well, losing away against Everton by 2-1. What's happened to Leicester, Frank?
Well, hard to understand. We see the ghost of Vardy. We don't see Maddison the way he used to play. I don't know. It's they're not into the game since the restart. They forget some basics about football, and at the end of the day, they don't win any games anymore. So of course they react in the second half, but it's too late. It's really too late, and I think. Good for them that Chelsea doesn't perform. What's going to happen with Manchester United or Wolverhampton? But if they carry on like that, they can finish 6th if they don't react before the end.
How do you explain it, Stevie? Like Jamie Vardy, as Frank said, again, kind of anonymous in this match. What's going on?
Well, Vardy in particular needs service. You know, he's not going to need to get on the training field and get some movement, because right now, they look static.
Right then, Shaq. 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. Give me your order.
3rd, I am going to go... I feel Manchester United get 3rd, Chelsea 4th, and Wolves 5th. I think Leicester just continue to plummet.
Wow, 3 points separate them. City 55, Chelsea 54 with United on 54, Wolves 52 as well. Frank?
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Really?
I would have to agree. I don't know between Manchester United and Chelsea, but I think the most important thing is to see Leicester losing the possibility of playing in the Champions League next season. I don't see them reacting. So, yeah, same as Shaka.
Mr. Anti-Manchester United, Mr. Liverpool Goggles.
Listen, right now it's very difficult to see or to give a reason why United don't get in the top 4. I think we shouldn't forget Wolves. Wolves have got momentum as well. Leicester completely are sinking big time. And Chelsea, although they lost today, I think will still win enough games to stay in the top 4. I'm going to say Man United get in the top 4 and Leicester drops out.
Just a word on Arsenal, a 4-0 victory over Norwich today. Steve, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because it's Norwich.
Yeah, it seems a little harsh to say it's just Norwich, because at the end of the day, you know, they made some chances, they scored some good goals, they passed the ball well, they played some nice football. You know, it's very difficult to kind of poo-poo a result like that, but I guess I'm going to, because it was just Norwich.
And Shaka, defend the first goal for me.
I can't. Listen, Tim Krul...
To keep hold of Aubameyang.
Yes, because he's a fantastic player, because they need leaders, and because he's going to score a goal for them. And but the main problem for Arsenal, even if they have many problems, I think is to resolve the problem of the central defense. I mean, we say that for City, we say that for Chelsea, but we especially say that for Arsenal. I mean, against Norwich is okay, but to have David Luiz and Mustafi central defense, I'm not sure you can go very far.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. More from Frank and Shaka today on Extra Time. We'll be asking Frank about his medical tales from the past. You can check that out over on our YouTube channel. Barcelona fans won't need reminding, this is how La Liga table looks after that 2-2 draw against Atleti at the Camp Nou. Real Madrid 1 point clear. In action on Thursday at home against Getafe, the fallout has been loud and widespread over the last 24 hours in Catalonia. Let's start, shall we, with that big decision of Setien not to bring on Antoine Griezmann until the 90th minute. This is what he had to say after the game about that. The problem is not everyone can play. We didn't bring him on because the team was doing well. It's difficult to find a place for Griezmann without destabilising the team. I won't say sorry because it's about decisions, but I understand he may feel bad, and I feel bad for him because he's a great person and a great professional. Gab Marcotti and Ali Moreno alongside me. Boys, before I get your opinion on that quote, we also heard from Antoine Griezmann's father on Instagram saying, in order to apologise, you first need the keys of the lorry, and that is not the case because he is simply a passenger. A lot to unpack here, Ali. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start with Quique Setien and him talking about it is hard to find a place for Antoine Griezmann on the field. Well, this is the same person and the same manager that maybe about a couple of weeks ago, if that, he came out and gave Antoine Griezmann the dreaded vote of confidence in saying that he would play for the team and he would be out on the field because he's an important figure as to what Barcelona does out on the field. Well, which one is it, Quique Setien? Is Griezmann important to the team or not important enough to have him out there in what was essentially the most important game you have played up until this point against Atletico Madrid? And so the truth is that Antoine Griezmann doesn't really fit in Barcelona, not as they are currently constructed. And that's why we see him struggle in the way that we have seen him struggle throughout the course of the season. And because of that, you have to make tough choices. But if you're the manager of a team like Barcelona, I don't feel like you have to come out and explain your decisions. However, people are going to ask the questions. And if you're going to answer those questions, then don't feel the need to apologize to the player. You go to the player directly and you explain the situation if indeed that's the way you want to deal with it. But you don't have to come out and say, I should apologize to him because he's a great person and a great professional. The reason Antoine Griezmann was brought into Barcelona was because he's a great player. And we just haven't seen anywhere near that with his performances this whole year with Barcelona.
This whole quote is a little nonsense, Gab, in particular the bit when we didn't bring him on because the team was doing well. You were hanging on against Atletico Madrid. You needed to win this game. You knew that Real Madrid would be big favourites if you didn't take all 3 points. You weren't doing well. Why are you saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what he meant was that, you know, he felt the team could see out the game and get the 3 points without him. But I think Ali hit the nail on the head. And I hate to go back to this, and I rarely do it, but you have managers who are in that big club manager, and they have that big club bluster about them, and you have other managers who maybe are nice guys, and nice guys feel bad when, oh, look, you know, I didn't get that guy on the field sooner. And, you know, Setien, in a perfect world, Setien would be the kind of manager who's confident enough and secure enough to say, look, it's my rear end on the line, not yours. I thought we were better off without Griezmann. He hasn't exactly lit it up. It's on me. If you don't like where we are at the end of the season, then go ahead and fire me if you've got the guts to do that. But I'm not going to apologize to him or answer specific questions here. He doesn't do that. It's not in his DNA. He has to offer up explanations. And when you do that, you come across looking weak, and these people smell blood.
Ali, how would you feel if your father took to Instagram to defend you?
I have to say, and maybe this is a sign of the times, but I cannot, in my lifetime, picture my father coming out and saying these things. If he indeed was evaluating my performances with an unbiased view and saying, well, you haven't played all that well. So if anything, my father would take the position of like, yeah, I wouldn't have played him either. No, he's not playing well. He doesn't deserve to be out on the field. Instead, we take this approach that somehow Antoine Griezmann is entitled to a starting position. And the truth is that his performances haven't warranted that. The only thing that I would say about Antoine Griezmann being on the field against Atletico Madrid is the fact that not because of whatever Griezmann has done, but because whatever Luis Suarez was not able to do, because physically he seemed to be struggling. And so you needed somebody who, at the very least, could move with some sort of freedom, whereas Suarez was impeded physically and visibly so. You could at least
Let's turn our attention to what happened in Italy today. Goodness me, Inter hitting 6 past
game that you're going to use to evaluate Alexis Sanchez and his performance with Inter should not be Brescia. On the whole, just a very, very dominant performance for Inter, and one that you would have hoped you would have seen from them more consistently when they were actually in the race to win this whole thing.
Alexis Sanchez, Gav. He's not going to stay there, is he?
Well, the funny thing about Alexis Sanchez, just and I appreciate it. This is so Inter. You know, he's getting good and he's contributing, just as they're going to have to send him back to Manchester United. Inter confirming that they've been able to extend his loan until the end of the season in Serie A, which is going to be August 2nd or 3rd that weekend. But no more than that, which means that he won't be able to play for them in the Europa League. Part of the reason there probably also because, of course, United also in the Europa League, and they probably don't want to face him as an opponent. So, it's Sod's Law with Inter there. Just as they finally unlock what Alexis can do, he's getting ready to pack his bag.
Meanwhile, the other side of the city, as always, Ali, we start to get excited about Milan. Think, they've been looking good of late. Maybe could even make a push for Europe. And then all of a sudden they put in a performance like today and it needed that crazy late goal to see the equaliser. What was wrong with them today?
The final third for Milan was just awful. The final pass, the final delivery, the finish. They may have had 30, 35 attempts on goal. It felt like it was 100 attempts on goal, but it didn't feel like most of those attempts were actually on target. And you think of the possession that they had, and after SPAL get a man thrown out, the Alessandro late in the first half, it was all full domination.
They actually rested, 4 or 5 starters for this game. So it was actually partly the SPAL B team that went out there and took a 2-0 lead over Milan. I want to give Milan just a little bit of defensive. I'm going to sort of give them a half pass defensively because, of course, that first goal was a bit of a car crash where they couldn't clear the ball and Gabbia and whatnot. But the second goal, by the way, Sergio Floccari, that man, it's his first goal of the season, and I believe he's older than Ali. I think he's 38 years old, Sergio Floccari. Certainly metabolically
no, he's
older.
not older than me. No, Gav.
But close enough. But anyway, so, this is Twilight Zone stuff already. And then Milan tried to get back into it. I thought they created enough chances to win objectively. But you know what? Creating the chances is most of the battle, but it's not the whole battle. You have to finish them. And now the big question is, when they've got this big game against Lazio coming up, to what degree does this actually derail them? Because they would have pulled level with Napoli, at least momentarily, had they taken all 3 points.
Meanwhile, I just want to turn the clock back 24 hours because I've got to ask you, Ali, normally you do your top 10 goals. Not very often we have top 3 goals from the same match, from the same team, but I think it's worthy today to talk us through it. Should we start with third? Yeah, let's go with third, shall we?
Third, Paul.
I miss the subtleties that Ali as a striker points out, that the goalkeeper getting a hand to Dybala's. I would have probably had Dybala's higher, but then again, Cristiano's was just unbelievable. And just before that, Cristiano had a shot that was actually saved, but where he has like the quickest release you've ever seen, and he just hits the ball so hard out of nothing. I mean, in addition to all the other things he does, I don't need Cristiano's fans telling me that I'm being reductive, but I think very few players strike the ball as well as he does. And then obviously
so
Douglas
I asked you for the top 3 goals, and you mentioned a goal that isn't a goal that was saved, Gab.
Because that was, listen, I'm just praising Cristiano. You got a problem with that? You got a problem with me praising Cristiano?
I haven't heard you praise Messi for a very long time,
here.
Gab. That is it. We've had enough of your anti-Messi, pro-Ronaldo propaganda on this show. Thank you very